Okay, greetings everyone, and welcome back to a super special, icy, cold, frigid, Rukia Kuchki-tastic episode. Oh my god. Look, there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline in the Thousand Year Blood War arc. I mean, this is only Core 2. We have a whole other one after this. Actually, maybe two more. I think you could fit two more easily. Plus, there's stuff from Can't For Your Own World they're incorporating into this. But, I mean, like, Rukia is my favorite character in Bleach, so I'm a little biased here. So I'm just going to say out of the first 19 episodes, I'm going to go with this one as being my favorite so far. And you know what? It's actually really cool. It's very poetic, if nothing else. So the 6th episode of Core 1 was The Fire, where we saw Yamamoto go into his Bankai to fight against Yuha, or Roid. And so that was a fire-based Bankai. Now, the 6th episode of Core 2, we see Rukia going into her Bankai, Haka no Togame. And to celebrate the occasion, I have not one, but two Sode no Shirayukis. I have two of their power together here. Also a Rukia pop figurine in the background. Oh my goodness. Okay. So we are ready to go with this today. We don't see her Bankai until the very end of the episode. They actually had to extend the episode, so they had the ending credits. They had end-roll playing over Rukia going into her Bankai. It was one of those. You really got the impression. And then they crammed the scene with Gwenelle Lee fighting against Yachiru at the very end as well. So they crammed a lot of stuff into this episode because I think they have to set up Kenpachi's fight with Gremmy, Sternritter V, the Visionary. That's going to be all next episode, and there's a lot of stuff in that fight that needs to be included. So they have to get, like, the preamble to that out in this one, or it's just not going to work right to kind of move this along at a nice pace. Well, anyway, we're actually starting off at the Royal Palace, and this is a scene that actually occurs way back in chapter, like, 555. Okay, we're, like, almost at, like, in terms of the manga, like, I remember Rukia's battle kind of ended around 570, and then going into Kenpachi's fight with Gremmy was mainly the 570s. And then Ichigo returned in, like, 581, and then that's when he began his fight with the Bambis, okay? So, this happened a little bit earlier, but because we had those added scenes with Ichigo training in the immovable pass, or, like, the unapproachable path, I should say, that was added in, so actually see what Ichigo's training really entailed. And so it ended with him arriving at Senjumaru's palace, and then it was just like, ah, yes, welcome to my palace, Ichigo. And by the way, I guess I always assumed that Ichibe's palace was last. Actually, it was confirmed to be last. So for whatever reason, Ichigo just went from Nimaya's, skipped over Senjumaru Shutara's, and went to Ichibe's, because Rukia and Renji did go. Senjumaru's was the 4th palace. That was the 4th one. They just skipped over it, and then we went right to Ichibe's to kind of finish up the training, and then Ichigo had to kind of round back and then get the clothing. So this is the scene where Ichigo is heading down to the Seirete, and he's showing off his new threads, which look pretty fabulous, I have to say. I love the texture there, like the texture of the cool, like, Renji had like a tiger print sort of thing. Rukia didn't really have much of anything. Byakuya really doesn't have much of anything. No, I think Byakuya has a headband that's pretty textured, but, yeah, Ichigo's is pretty sweet there. And so, Senjumaru is explaining the whole situation to Ichigo, why exactly they needed to wear those clothing. So that wasn't just for aesthetic or whatever. No, that was actually a practical function of those outfits. Yeah, they do have added protection and everything like that, because Senjumaru herself, like the weaving goddess, like created those in the in the Soul Palace, so they do have like added effects with that. But like the main goal is not for like protection from fighting or like attacks or something. The main goal of those clothing is to protect you against the layers and like just tremendous amount of friction, because the way to get back down to the Seirete, as we saw with Rukia and Renji, they have to literally like free fall off the side of the palace through 72 layers. So you're literally smashing through like 72 sound barriers on the way back down. And like, okay, well, why can't you just use the Tenshuren, the thing that they came here in? And, you know, Korinji's here, and he's just like, we'd love to send you in the Tenshuren, but we can't be going around in that thing all the time. I don't really know exactly, like, part of the way he says this makes me think there's a reason why you can't just keep coming down with that thing, like it has to recharge or something, like there's a practical reason why you can't take the Tenshuren. Other reasons might just be like the Zero Squad is not supposed to be involved with the Seirete, like in that way. We're not supposed to, like, we're supposed to stay here and guard the Soul King. That is what our job is. We are the Royal Guard. If Yuha comes knocking at our door, then we're gonna, you know, step out and have some words to him, okay? But other than that, we stay up here. So that's kind of the impression I got, where Korinji's like, hey, look, you know, that Tenshuren was meant basically to go down and, like, do our job in the Seirete, which the Royal Squad's job is to, like, nurture and train and, I guess, heal. Because Korinji taught the healing techniques to Unohana, and Ichibei even said as much to Ichigo, like, that's one of our jobs as well, is to, like, train. So it's not to fight the Seirete's battles. That is not the job that they have, so they're not just going to keep coming down here to save the Seirete whenever they're in a situation. I mean, I would sort of argue what happens if the Quincy's were to win and kill every single Shinigami in the Seirete. Like, what's the point of having a king and a royal guard if there's if there's no subjects down below? The Soul King does have a very specific purpose that really has nothing to do with like the captains of the Gotei 13. His role is to kind of like be the linchpin in the keystone, maintaining the dimensional balance. So I guess the idea is, if the entire Seirete was wiped out and every single captain died, every Shinigami's dead down below, I guess eventually the Soul King or Ichibei or somebody up in the Royal Palace could figure out a way to, like, create new Shinigami or something. I don't know, or, like, the cycle would continue somehow. It would be really off balance. But I'm assuming there's some way that they could revitalize it eventually. But anyway, yeah, so they open the stairs. I love how there's, like, staircases. As you can see, the stairs go all the way down. So they mentioned that if Ichigo were to use Flash Step and going down the stairs, like this spiral staircase, it would take him about a week. And Ichigo's like, oh yeah, well, don't worry about it. If I go, you know, even faster than Flash Step allows me, I should go down. I should be able to make it in like half a day or whatever. And he's like, I'm just glad that you guys, you know, like before the Quincy's arrived. And then that's when Ichibei shows up and is like, oh, don't worry about that. Quincy's are already here. In fact, they started attacking like 3 hours ago. And Ichigo's like, oh my god, you guys suck! You know, why didn't you tell me? And so Ichigo starts heading back down. Kiryu Hikifune walks over. She's back into her plump and, you know, hearty form. And she has some rice balls that she tosses down to Ichigo to, you know, have a nice snack if he gets tired. Actually, I like that because now I think that serves a function of those rice balls serve to, like, restore Ichigo's Ryatsu, the little of his Ryatsu that was lost, using the Flash Steps to, like, burn his way down, because he's really booking it. Okay, he's going super freaking fast through these barriers, rocketing down. Korinji, you know, he might have lied a little bit or maybe fabricated something, but he's like, yeah, it takes about a week if you use regular Flash Step. Now, Ichigo going in a half a day, he's going to burn out a little bit of Ryatsu. Even if he has, like, God power now, that's going to bring him down a little bit. If he's, like, at 100% right now, burning all that Flash Steps might bring him at least down into, like, the 90s or the 80s. So it's nice to have something to restore his Ryatsu. Like, right before he crashes down, he scarfs down the, like, the rice balls, gets back up to 100% so he can really start the fight fully refreshed, okay? There's also a nice line here between Ichibei and all, mentioning that Ichigo has become a proper Shinigami, but beyond that, has actually surpassed what it means to be an ordinary Shinigami or a Soul Reaper. And, you know, it is now kind of ambiguous. Now that we saw his training in the Soul Palace a little bit, it's a little ambiguous now exactly what Ichigo's power really is. Like, we know he's going to attain his Hollow form and, like, mastery over his Hollow, and he has his new Shikai, and he has his new Bankai. But now that we saw what, you know, the Soul King really did to him, like the power flowing into him and everything like that, it kind of lends like, ooh, is there something else that maybe we're going to see that we didn't see in the manga hinted at now that Ichigo had that training done? So I'm actually kind of really excited where we're going from here. So we cut back down to the research division. This is where Urahara receives the phone call that, like, he's coming down. Like, look at that staircase. Are you literally meant to be just walking down the staircase? That always seemed, like, annoying to me. Like, even if you did use Flash Step the normal way, like, Flash Stepping seems like a technique that you use in, like, a straight line, not, like, down a endless, you know, spiral staircase. So Ichigo's making the smart move and just, like, diving. I don't think you're supposed to take the stairs, because Renji and Rukia also just dive bombed right through it. So it's maybe more of a guide, if nothing else. Like, it's just like, okay, we're gonna punch a hole, like, through those 72 layers, and you have to free fall right down through the center. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. So he calls up Kisuke, and he's just like, hey, Kisuke, I'm on my way. Might take me a while, but I'm coming. And then Urahara's like, great, I wish to see you and everything, just be safe, and we'll be waiting for you, Kurosaki. And Ichigo kind of, he hangs up, and he's also aware of like, all right, Urahara did not say anything about the current situation, so that means it's not looking good. Because if things were going okay, like let's say the Shinigami were winning and they were fighting back against the Quincy's in a fairly, like it was very obvious, like they maybe had like a rout against the Quincy's, Urahara probably would have opened the phone call like that. He's just like, Urahara-san, I'm on my way. It might take me a while though. Urahara might have been like, Kurosaki-san, don't worry about it, my boy. Everything seems to be lovely down here. Toshiro killed the fire guy. We're having a blast. In fact, I think I might get on it in a second here. Benehime! It's just like Ichigo's like, oh, okay, you seem like you got everything locked down. I'll take my sweet time. No, Ichigo would have hurried no matter what. Like, even if the situation was, like, in the Shinigami's favor, Ichigo still would have booked it. So he puts down kind of he doesn't have goggles. He didn't bring goggles like Renji and Rukia. He's going to get the wind in his eyes. That's going to be really painful. But he kind of, like, scrunches up his bandana and his little mask there, and he just punches through the sound barrier and then just gets moving. So now we resume where we left off last time. We have Uryu and Hashwalt. I think it's Hashwalt, not Hashwalth. But hey, whatever, old habits die hard, I guess. Hashwalth, okay. So he is now donning the mask of the ruler as Yuha has gone off to take a little nap in the royal bedchamber. The royal king-size bed. The royal water bed is where Yuha slumbers. But anyway, Hashwalt is now explaining to Uryu exactly the kind of being that Yuha is. And we don't actually see the form of it. In fact, it's actually explained not through the way that the manga did it with, like, the baby. It's actually explained through the method of execution, Kangdu and BG9. So that's actually a very clever way to do this. I'm actually really impressed. So this was still going to be in here because they added those extra scenes of Uryu gathering Kangdu and BG9 and bringing them back to the Soulburn. So, like, that doesn't make any sense for them not to include this scene. But the way that they use this as a method to show, for Hashwalth to show Uryu, this is what Yuha is. This is the kind of being he is. And it also makes sense why Hashwalth wouldn't, like, explain everything to Uryu, like every little detail about Yuha's powers from what we're going to understand, because Hashwalth, says he trusts Uryu, like, you are the successor His Majesty chose, so I guess I will tell you. But at the end of the day, Hashwalth is like all the other Stern Ritters and doesn't trust Uryu as far as he could throw him. So anyway, they go to the execution ground. We see Kangdu, Stern Ritter I, and BG9, Stern Ritter letter K there. And Hashwalth is there kind of looking down and just like, Uryu, watch, this is what Yuha is. And so Hashwalth tries to execute Kangdu, except Kangdu has the power of the iron, which we actually did not see at all utilized during his fight with Toshiro. But here we see it, and I like the texture there. So it's essentially the ability to just turn your body metal. It's kind of like Kevin's ability from Ben-10 Alien Force is the best way for me to describe it. His body just turns like hard as iron. So Hashwalth raises up his big claymore to kind of cut him down, or his Y-hander or whatever, tries to cut him down, and Kangdu just blocks it. Even though he can't move his arms, he blocks it with his ability. And so Hashwalth is like, yes, you are the iron. However, you used your power to give yourself good fortune. Do you not see the balance beginning to spin now, to begin to turn in my favor? So Kangdu sees the giant scales over him. Hashwolf's ability, which I don't think is revealed until very, very, we already knew it because he says balance a lot and he's Stern Ritter B, so it could be inferred. But I don't think it officially was stated in his text box until, like, way later in the freaking manga. But yeah, he's Stern Ritter letter B, the balance. So it's a pretty hack ability where if the enemy kind of has the upper hand, Hashwolf can just, like, nope, reverse Uno card. What's even funnier is later with Uryu's ability, the antithesis, is also a reverse Uno card. So when they start fighting, it's just reverse Uno, just back and forth, which is really funny. But makes sense, given that they have a similar kind of role in Yuha's, like, plan. So because of that, even though he is using the iron, the blade slashes right through Kangdu's arm and just slices him down right there. And his head. His head's just gone. And then we have BG9. Now, this was kind of the moment of truth. I was kind of hoping, like, all right, if this is the moment where they're going to reveal BG9's letter name, like what it actually stands for, the letter K, this is it. And they don't. They don't. And I'm like, what? Come on now. That would have been the perfect, like, the setup was perfect for that. There was a moment where Hashwalt looked down at both of them. He could have just been Sternritter I, the Iron Kang-Do, and Sternritter K, the Knowledge BG9. You will now be judged. Like, it could have been that. It could have been so simple. And he even says Kang-Do's letter, but he doesn't say BG9's? I don't know. Maybe Oda would, not Oda, maybe Kubo will reveal it in like a club outside or whatever, I guess, I suppose. But maybe he already has, actually, and I just missed it. And it is probably almost like certainly the Knowledge. But like this would have been the perfect time to reveal that, and he just didn't. So I don't know. And BG9's gone after this. He gets straight up just killed, right? He's dead after this. He gets hacked up, too. And, by the way, I guess he had actual blood in him because we see their bodies carted away later. Like, there we go. There's BG9's crotch, his rocket-powered dick. And he has got blood on him. So, yeah, maybe he was more of just a dude that was, like, maybe he had, like, a brain, like a human brain, but everything else of him was just mechanical. Maybe it's like a reverse of Gremmy, where, you know, he has a mechanical body, and then he has a human brain, and then Gremmy had a human brain, but everything was imaginary. Maybe something like that. I don't know. But anyway, Hashwalt explains the power to Uryu. Uryu's like, hey, I know they failed you, but is that kind of a waste? I mean, did you have to kill them? I mean, they were kind of useful. I don't know, Uryu, like, yeah, letter I, letter K, were they that useful? I mean, they were cool, I guess. Not really. BG9 had potential. Kang-Do was like, I don't really care about Kang-Do, but like, okay, BG9 had potential as the robot dude and like the Quincy with a minigun, but like, other than that, you know, not super relevant. So Hashwalt begins to explain, of course, that the power of Yuha is to bestow the script upon the Sternritters. So all the Sternritters' unique abilities, those are from Yuha. But when they die, the power goes back to Yuha. Not just the power he gave them, but the power that they also accrued. So, you know, let's say he gives the iron, the script of the letter I to Kang-Do. When Kang-Do dies, he doesn't just get the iron back, he gets all the power that Kang-Do had, period, okay? So it's kind of like a loan that Yuha gives out that's kind of like loan shark ability is kind of what his power is. Like, I'm going to give you some of my power, but when you die, I get all of yours, okay? And so that's how that goes. And Hashwalt explains that, like, also because he hands out this power, and Uryu drank it too, so he has the ability as well. That's like, I like that. The blood on the ground makes a cross. That's actually a pretty cool aesthetic there. So they're also kind of like His Majesty's pawns. Like, I gave you this power. You belong to me now, essentially. I will use you as pawns on a chessboard, and you will like it. Actually, doesn't matter if you like it. That's the way it works. The second you accept power from me, that is how it works, okay? And Uryu is the same boat. Hashwalt's in the same boat. They're kind of all in the same boat, all right? And Hashwalt's kind of come to terms with it, and it's kind of like His Majesty's ability, you know, we're all pawns in his game, and when we die, he will reclaim us whenever he so chooses. Now, at the end of this conversation, Hashwalt says something along the lines of, now, His Majesty needs to do this. He needs to constantly absorb these souls every now and then, or else. And then he's still speaking to Uryu, but the audio cuts out, so you don't actually hear what they're saying, okay? So I'm assuming, now, a couple of angles they could take this. Hashwalt could straight up lie to Uryu here and tell him something that wasn't true about Yuha's ability, because he doesn't really trust him. Or, you know, number two, he could just straight up tell Uryu, like, if Yuha doesn't continue to absorb souls back into him, I assuming he will begin to regress once more into that, like, form that he was in at the very beginning, where he was a baby that had no senses, could not see, could not touch, could not hear, or anything like that. And it wasn't until people gave him their soul, you know, touched, you know, Yuha, that gave him part of their soul, that Yuha could actually have his faculties about him, okay? But I guess if Yuha does not continuously absorb the power of his Quincy's back into himself, he may regress back into that form. And so the way I think this is stage one in setting up the different way that they're going to take out Yuha. Or even if they keep the same thing with the Soul Silver, the Still Silver arrowhead and everything, the setup for that thing needs to be way more. like foreshadowing needs to be done here, because there was really none there. I mean, there was very vague hints that something happens when a Quincy, you know, the S-Wayland occurs, and then, like, there's a little piece, like, we saw that scene with Ryukin doing the autopsy on Katagiri, and he, like, pulled something out of Katagiri and put it into, like, the medical bin next to him, and it's like, oh, yeah, it turns out that was a piece of silver. If you melt it down and turn it into an arrowhead and you stab Yuha with it, all of his powers will go away, even the god powers he obtains. And just like, oh, really? I didn't see that coming. Oh, that was something that wasn't set up at all. So, yeah, this is maybe step one in setting that up for later. I would love that. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Yuha or Hashwall Thuryu. We're here. Here's the main character of the series right here. Rukia. All right, here we are. So she's dropped off Rose and Kensei at daycare with Isane, and now she's just trying to think about, like, okay, there's a lot of Ryatsus firing off all over the Serite. You know, where am I going next? Like, who am I fighting? What's going on? She's like, maybe I should go back with Renji, hang out with him a bit, maybe get a little bit more character development before I marry him at the end of the episode. Oh, wait, no, what's going on here? Okay, so we have As Nodt arriving. As Nodt being, of course, the fear, and he's pretty creepy as always. He has this ability now, I guess, to just creepily talk to people and kind of phase around the battlefield. It's more of just like his ability of the fear. Like whenever he's in close proximity to you and that like the fear radius begins to take effect, you start hearing voices, you start getting like the goosebumps up your back, and just, oh, you know, you ever have just like the willies? You know, that's As Nodt's ability. He's Stern Ritter W, the willies. Okay. But yeah, here he is, and he's like, ah, are you afraid, little girl? Oh, I'm lonely myself. My Senbon Zakura, where is it? I am As Nodt, As Nodt. As not to be, we are to be. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so Senbon Zakura has left him. Once again, rather interesting. I guess that means the Hollow Pill was able to go all the way up to the Soul Palace where Byakuya received it, because otherwise that doesn't make any sense, but he lost the Senbon Zakura, so As Nodt's feeling rather sad right now. He's a sad lad, but it's okay, because Rukia is there to cheer him up. And so he takes off his cloak. He's got so many buttons. How many buttons does he got? Let's count As Nodt's buttons. Guys, let's play a game. Let's count all the buttons on As Nodt's jacket. All right, you know, I'll count, and then you count, and then you tell me how many buttons he's got. Okay. Okay. I got 49. I don't know if that's the total number. I just did a quick, like, glance over his body. I probably missed a few, but I got 49 buttons. So let me know. Comment down below on how many buttons As Nodt's wearing on his jacket that you can see right here, okay? Actually, I think I see a few that I might have missed, but I'm going to go with 49. I'm locking in 49. Okay, great. So the fight begins now, and As Nodt instantly begins to bring up the familial connection, of course, between Byakuya and Rukia, and just like, oh, you are Rukia Kuchiki, the younger sister of Byakuya Kuchiki. Where is Byakuya? How's his wounds doing? Is he going to show up today if I kill you? And then Rukia just has the badass line of, like, Rukia is look, she still really looks up to Byakuya, and there was a lot of issues there in the family, of course, that most of it, I imagine, was rectified at the end of the Soul Society arc, and I imagine Rukia and Byakuya, you know, sat down and had some conversations a little bit about Hisana and the whole situation, so they're a lot closer than they used to be. But Rukia is no longer, like, in Byakuya's shadow, I would say. It's like, she still wants to be acknowledged by him. Like, that's kind of, like, her big dream. Like, I can't wait for the moment that Byakuya kind of acknowledges my strength. Like, I'm truly powerful, right? But Rukia has kind of already reached that point, and definitely so in this episode. Like, I would say she reached that point before it, but, you know, Byakuya's, it's tough for him to express emotions sometimes. But the battle begins, and As Nodt begins firing off his fear thorns, I guess I'll call them, his fear spikes. So he launches these spikes. Rukia dodges them using Matrix time a little bit here. And the spikes land into an opposite building, and they begin to seep into this goo, his fear goo, as I said in the review all those years ago, the fear goo ability. So, yeah, Rukia understands a little bit about it. Like, I mean, it's not really hard to grasp. Don't let the giant spikes with the fear goo hit you, all right? That's the general vibe here. Now, unfortunately, As Nodt's ability cannot be easily blocked by just a normal barrier, even when it hits. So, the actual spikes or the thorns themselves, they seem to stop when they hit some kind of physical boundary. However, the goo seems to pass and permeate just through anything. So, stone, iron, other like Ryatsu itself. It doesn't seem to really matter. Like flesh and blood, it'll just pass and permeate through everything until it infects something that is capable of feeling fear. So even stopping it with inanimate objects, so even objects can feel fear, ladies and gentlemen. It's certainly a scary ability. So, Rukia, sets up an ice barrier, and the spike gets stopped, but then the fear goo begins to land on her, and it seems like she's affected by the power, and so then you have the moment with As Nodt begin to toy with her, because that's kind of As Nodt's whole thing, where it's like, yes, I'll activate my fear goo and get the fear nice and pumping, and then I'll begin to toy with their fears and dangle them like puppets on strings until I gouge out their throat. That's kind of As Nodt's whole shtick. So here we go, baby. Perhaps fear having no effect is your fear. And As Nodt just kind of is just like, he's bent over there at like a 90-degree angle. What's that? Is that the new trend? Is that the new thing that the kids are doing these days? Like, we're gonna do like bending, we're gonna 90-degree angles. That's what we're doing here. Yeah, okay. But anyway, As Nodt's like, fear not having an effect? Not possible. Fear is fear. Everyone feels fear. And Rukia doesn't even really try to dodge these ones. She just grabs one right in her hand, and just like with the last ones, it begins to permeate. So her hand is now covered in the fear goo, but Rukia don't care. So she just has this cool form where her whole body is beginning to just freeze over, and you see the icy mist as like the fear goo comes in contact with her, it just begins to freeze in her hand, and her whole body is just kind of like beginning to, emanate this cold effect. Like even getting close to her would cause your body to just shut down from hypothermia. And so this is the true power of the shikai of Sode no Shirayuki. And As Nodt still doesn't seem to understand it. He's just like, okay, I don't see what you're doing here, lady. You're just making your body colder. You're using ice. Like, I get what your power is. You're like the other dude with the ice dragon, except lamer. I'm just going to cut you down, right? Like, it's like, you can't stop my thorns with ice. It's not happening. However, doesn't matter. So in the manga, when he goes on this little monologue here, As Nodt has this really cool monologue where it's just, I don't know, cool, emo, whatever you want to say. But he's just like, why do people feel fear? When someone says why they feel safe in a room, they can't really come up with an explanation. But when they are afraid, they can definitely come up with an explanation. It's too tall, it's too cramped, it's too dirty, that kind of stuff. So he goes on this thing, and in the manga, there's really not a lot to accompany it. His body is just making real weird contortions, and his eyes can do this thing where he can kind of go wall-eyed, where his pupils like are facing in opposite directions and stuff like that. But here in the anime, they add this really cool effect to it. I was actually almost obviously I was like, okay, the thumbnail of this video has to be Rukia going into Bankai. But I'll tell you what, right here, this was a close second for the thumbnail option right here. Rukia in this, as Nodt is talking about what fear really is and how it affects you like a virus that you just can't escape from, we see this interpretation of Rukia here, which it's different from the zombie Rukia, face melty Rukia that we saw with Byakuya's fight and his like vision, but it's I think kind of just as creepy, where we see Rukia with her eyes just like blackened out and her like this goo bubbling out of her insides, covering her entire flesh, and it's like all this like this interesting purple hue as the fear is just like covering her like an infection kind of thing, right? And she's like drowning in the fear goo. So this was a cool like looking like interpretation of As Nodt like viewing the fear, and we actually see another zombie form later, which is going to be really fun. But yeah, that's As Nodt here. Very creepy, dude. I think the creepiest because we don't see his mouth until a little later, and his mouth itself is pretty creepy. But I like the fact that Kubo did the stuff with his eyes. So it's like I can't really show facial expressions from the nose down. So what can I do to make As Nodt really creepy? I know. I'll give him the ability to like move his eyes around freeform. So, one pupil will be down here and the other one will be up here, and it'll be like rolling around in his head, and it's just like, oh god, that's creepy. Yeah, strengthen themselves to avoid fear. That's what we all do, but it's a fruitless endeavor. As long as you're alive, fear will always have an effect. Well, get ready, buddy. I'm about to rock your whole world, because I actually am not alive at all right now. And I love, like, As Nodt has this really long monologue. It takes up several panels in the manga, and he's like, as long as you're alive, you can feel fear. And Rukia's like, well, I'm not alive then. And I love the immediate reaction to As Nodt. It's like, huh? What? That's not how you were supposed. You're clearly alive right now. You're talking to me. I mean, technically speaking, you're dead because you're a Shinigami. But like, I know what you mean. Like, what? Huh? I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't understand. Do you want me to do the creepy monologue again? I could go over this again. Fear, not that hard to understand. So Rukia begins to explain the true power of Urusei no Shirayuki's shikai as the cold drops to such insane temperatures, the glass of her goggles begins to just freeze and just shatter. It just begins to crack right down the center, okay? So the ability of the shikai, we had the 3 dances so far. We had Somenomai, Tsukishiro, and then, Shirafude was the 3rd dance, I believe, or there was white dance or white pillar, white ripple, and then white sword was the ultimate technique she used up against Aranero Arurueri, how she killed him. But that's not the real power of it. That's like an extension of the ability. The true nature of Sode no Shirayuki is to take the body temperature of the user and reduce it to below 0. And you can control, but keep in mind, because I'm in America, so Fahrenheit over here, so 32 degrees for freezing and 212 degrees for boiling. But in most of the world where things make sense, 0 degrees is freezing, 100 degrees is boiling. Pretty simple. Don't know why we can't just adopt that. 0, 100 makes sense. But no, 32, 212. That makes more sense. Okay, anyway. So you can drop the temperature below 0, and I love this for a number of reasons. Number one, it's Rukia, and just anything involving her is insane. But second reason why I like it is it distinguishes her ability from Toshiro's a little bit more. Because, yeah, up until now, you could look at Toshiro's as, like, free-form weather control. Hyorin Maru can manipulate snow and hail and ice itself out of the moisture in the air. Rukia could do that too, but it's not about affecting the weather, it's about affecting the temperature of her body, dropping it below 0, and then the chill air around her is what causes all of this stuff, okay? And so I believe when she was using the dances earlier, it was temporarily dropping her body, like when she used White Moon, that was the ability, White Moon against like, D-Roy or, whoever. Whenever she used those abilities, her body temperature did drop below 0, but it wasn't as low as, like, absolute 0 like she achieves here, and also it was just for a brief moment. And so maybe to the point where maybe she didn't even notice, and it wasn't low enough to actually do damage to her body. It was low enough to freeze, which that's the whole point. So maybe she dropped her body temperature to, like, 0 exactly against D-Roy, just enough to freeze him, which she did, and then won the fight, and that's just how it goes, right? But now we're going to take it to even more insane degrees. And it's actually kind of a messed up power when you really think about it. That's the third reason why I like this. It's like a balancing act for Rukia, where she's literally killing her body and then manipulating it with Ryatsu, not by her muscles. She's not moving her body with her muscles or her bones or anything, because it's frozen, like her nerves or anything at this point. In fact, that's the whole reason As Nodt's fear doesn't work, is her nerves are kind of frozen solid or like inactive at the moment, right? So it's kind of like Rukia is killing her body and then using her Ryatsu control to manipulate it kind of like a puppet, sort of similar to the Quincy's ability of Ranso Tengai. No, not exactly. It's not actual puppet strings, but she is using her Ryatsu, and I'm assuming it's her learning the true ability of Sode no Shirayuki working together along with her Zanpakuto spirit is what's helping her move right now, but it's not with her nerves or muscles or bones or anything like that. It is just with her Ryatsu she's moving it. So she's got to be very careful right now, because if she messes up, her body could incur severe injury that she just can't heal from. So imagine that's the power. The power is you die, but you're still kind of aware of yourself, like locked in syndrome a little bit, and you can kind of like move your body, but you have to be very careful and deliberate, because if you're not, like, you could like snap off an arm or something like that. So that's the reason why the fear goo isn't permeating into her. Her nerves just aren't active to carry it right now. The blood, I guess her blood is frozen as well, from what we're going to see in a moment here. So she slashes As Nodt, and she mentions that negative 18 degrees Celsius is where blood freezes. So the inside of Rukia right now is just frozen solid. Her heart's not beating. Here's the messed up thing, and this is the part where I'm not really sure, because as Nodt will bring up later, she can still see him. So that means her ocular nerves still have to be operating, but if the inside of her body is negative 18 degrees Celsius, her blood vessels are frozen. Her heart is frozen. She's not breathing. Her lungs are frozen. Her brain is frozen. All right, which doesn't, that's the part of this that doesn't make a lot of sense. Now you could say, yeah, Shinigami, Ryatsu, blah, 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 blah. But, yeah, is her brain frozen? She's still talking, which means her vocal cords still have to be unfrozen for her to physically actually move it to be able to talk. I know Shinigami are capable of doing some crazy shit with Ryatsu. I get it, I do. But, you know, the fact that she could still see, the fact she could still talk, the fact she could still clearly think, so her brain, eyes, and throat still need to be unfrozen in order to do that. I'm just whatever. Anyway, it is scary though if that's the ability that freezes. I'm gonna freeze my brain, turn it into a temporary slushy, and then manipulate my body without a brain. Like, okay. So yeah, she begins to steadily drop the temperature. First minus 18 where blood freezes. Then negative 50 degrees Celsius, which causes ice quakes in the ground, which is interesting because they're actually not standing on the ground right now. They're standing on top of a building, but whatever, it's fine. And then finally, negative 273.15 degrees Celsius, which is absolute zero. And I remember this from the review because I remember having a whole discussion. Like, I remember I had to go, this was one of the first times I had to go and do research for a video, like science research. I went on, like, looked around and like, okay, what is absolute zero? Can we achieve absolute zero? Like, what's the whole deal here? And the whole idea at the end of the day is that there's really no concept of cold. There's a concept of lack of heat. And when every single, like even something that's really cold, like even an ice cube still retains some heat, even though it's cold. But if you go through the process of removing every single aspect of heat from something, then yes, you would achieve absolute zero. I do not believe with current science we can really do that. We can get very, 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 very close to absolute zero. And there was a video I remember watching back in the day that explained why, like, it's impossible to reach it. You know, if you remove all the heat from something, then there's still something, like, you have to remove. Like, I can't remember. It's been years since I watched the video, but it was, like, a very good way of explaining it to a layperson like myself, because I'm not a scientist, on why you can't achieve absolute zero. And this is Bleach, of course, so Ryatsu, so you can achieve absolute zero. However, Rukia mentioned she can only achieve this form for 4 seconds. So after As Nodt's frozen from that slash, Rukia has to slowly raise her body temperature back up, but she can't go too fast. She can't just go from absolute zero back up to regular body temp, because that would cause her whole body to break down. See, this is the balancing act I'm talking about. Maybe not necessarily going into it, but coming back up from it, and we're even going to see some slight damage here. Rukia sliced part of her finger. I guess she stayed like in 5 seconds. So it's a really brutal attack, because if you stay in that form for longer than 4 seconds, she probably wasn't even in it until like 5 or 6 seconds, but that was enough to begin to break down her body. Not much. It was just like a paper cut, but severe cell degeneration because of that. All right. So you got to be careful. If she stayed in the absolute zero form for, let's say, double it, let's say 8 seconds, you know, she might have lost a finger. If she stayed in that form for 20 seconds, she might have lost a hand. 30 seconds could have been the whole arm. And if she stayed in that form for maybe not even a minute, and her whole body could have been crumbled apart, you know, into a bloody mess right now. So you got to be really careful how you do this. It's a very dangerous ability. But Rukia's got this. So, As Nodt, we now have, as he's frozen, he begins to have his flashback now. So, As Nodt's thing is he was stricken with a very, very chronic terminal illness. Not really sure what it is. Could have been tuberculosis, could have been some form of cancer. He was in constant pain and agony. He just wished for death every single day in the hospital, hoping that, like, if heaven exists, I'm hoping that, you know, there's no pain there. Or if hell exists, is the pain there even more agonizing than this? Because I can't really imagine it being worse than this. There's also a shot in the manga. They don't include it here in the anime, and I think for obvious reasons. But As Nodt has a Bible next to his bed, so maybe there's like a standards and practices thing on why they couldn't have it. It was actually a German Bible. It was written, I think, Bibel, which is the way you would write it in German, just to indicate that As Nodt grew up in Germany, and you know, this is in the modern day, obviously, because he has like life support equipment. So this obviously was not like 1,000 years ago, like when Basby and Hashwalt became Sternritters. This is more recent, obviously, where he was picked up. And then right here, you have the shot with Yuha arriving at his bedside to bestow him with the script. Actually, he says you have survived. So I'm assuming this is actually the after effects of the Aswalen. But I'm thinking it might also be some. Maybe he was always like it might have been a situation like Katagiri, where the Aswalen itself does not straight up kill you if you're a half-blood Quincy. It just removes your power. Where in the situation with Masaki would have been fine if she wasn't in the middle of a fight with Grand Fisher when she lost her Quincy powers. I feel like if she was just at home and she lost her Quincy powers, Masaki might have, like, collapsed. Maybe she would have been, like, short of breath. Maybe she would have, like, lost consciousness for a little while, but she might have been okay. And in the case with Katagiri, she fell out of consciousness and into, like, a coma, and then she died, like, 3 months later. That was Uryu's mom. So it might have been something similar with As Nodt. Maybe As Nodt was always, like, a sickly kind of guy, and then the Aswalen hit, and then it, like, really took a turn for the worst, and he got, like, a chronic illness, and then he was in the hospital. And so that's when when Yuha shows up and is like, you have survived. I will bestow you with the script of the letter F. And so at this point, this is what drives As Nodt. He doesn't have, like, really a lot going for him, but one thing he does have is, like, I only fear one thing in this world, and that's being rebuked by His Majesty, because he's the one that saved me from that hell. Like, As Nodt was literally in a position where he was feeling so much pain and he just wanted it to end. He would literally take a helping hand from anybody. Like, I'm not even shitting you. Like, if Satan himself came up from hell and was like, I'll take this pain away from you, but you got to do what I say, As Nodt would have been on the ground bowing, oh, Satan, my lord, like, what do you want me to do? You know, he would have done anything, and Yuha was the saving grace there. So he's like, you know what? Okay, cool. Give me a script. What do you want me to do? Kill those Shinigami? You got it, man. I'll do it. All right? And the Yuha's like, yes, just stay away. You're a little creepy. But yeah, go ahead and take this script. All right. So he breaks out of Rukia's ice, and it's a very creepy scene because his mask actually shatters apart with the flesh. It, like, rips off of him. So that's not how his face normally looked. He had a normal face. He just liked to wear the mask for whatever reason. So the mask was metal and got froze to his flesh, so when he rips it off, his flesh is exposed. And, yeah, it's not looking too good there. But he's like, I feel neither fear nor pain from battle. And his eyeball begins to do this, like, thing here. And then it's like, oh, no, we're going to hit the jackpot. Ding, ding, bam. And then he goes into his Voltstandig form, which is probably... Like, there's a few others. Like, Gerard's is really cool. I like Askin's. This shit is metal. I likened it to, like a heavy metal album cover, you know? Like, you could see this as, like, a Death Clock album cover or something. Or, like, Korn. Yeah, maybe Korn. I can see this on Korn. But, yeah. So this is what I'm telling you about the release forms of the Quincy's. Bazby gets, like, a halo and some wings. Like, the Bambis get just, like, wings and whatever. And then here we have As Nodt getting, like, a shriveled up mummy form with, like... He's, like, sliced from stem to stern down the center with the stitches, and his mouth's all, like, cracked and broken, which is probably from Rukia's Bankai, but those stitches were there beforehand. It's like he was, like, split open for, like, a vivisection or something. So you got that going for him, and then also you have all of the halos and all the, like, his wings take the form of, like, thorns behind him. Like, that's creepy. He's got the lines down his face that kind of remind me of Ukiora a little bit there. So how come some of the Quincy's get really cool release forms like this guy, and some of them are just, like, wings and a halo? Have fun. So Rukia is looking at As Nodt here like, oh, that's not good. That was kind of like my go-to there. Now, Rukia still got her Bankai in her back pocket, but you'll see in a while maybe not... She's, like, super eager to just use that right out of the gate. It's kind of a one-and-done sort of thing, and if you miss and if it doesn't work, it's not great. So, and also, she might not be 100% confident with it yet either. That's a thing that kind of, like, helps out when Byakuya shows up, and Byakuya kind of gives her some words of encouragement, and that kind of gives her the motivation of, like, no, I can do this. I can use my Bankai. So he's now beginning to say that, like, oh, Rukia, look, you can't attack me. And Rukia tries to cut him, but she just can't. And it's because he says that, oh, your subconscious is avoiding me. You know, you're not trying to actually hit me, right? Because you are now getting cold feet. And Rukia's like, I don't understand. My body shouldn't be able to feel fear right now. And As Nodt explains, is like, well, even though the cells and stuff in your body might be freezing below freezing temperatures, your nerves must still be working because you're still able to see me. So Tartara for us instills fear in your own optic nerve. So that means that, like, that's the thing that always confused me about this fight. It's like Rukia's nerves are frozen, but her eyes still work, which are nerves. So the only explanation I can really have for this is Rukia might have actually done the thing that I was complaining about against Rose's fight. Rose was like explaining his powers all the time when he could have easily have just not said anything, or he could have just lied about what his powers did, right? Rukia might have actually done that clever shit. He was like, oh yeah, my whole body's dead right now, except my head. That could have honestly been the thing. Like, her head still had to stay active above freezing because of, you know, her brain and her eyes and her mouth. She was still able to talk and everything like that. And all of the damage we see done to her from her body is always on her hands, like when her hands crack and get sliced apart. It's never with her face. So she might have just lied and just said, yeah, like, my body from the neck down is below freezing. Now, does that still not make any sense? No, but Ryatsu, I can take it. Ryatsu magic Shinigami power can take it away from there. But yeah, so maybe As Nodt just figured out the weakness of, like, okay, your eyes. So if Rukia were to get tagged in the face with one of the fear thorns and the fear goo, that might have actually affected her. She kind of made certain to, like, grab it with her hand. If her whole body was immune to it, why did she bother blocking the thorn so it hit her hand and not her face? Yeah, that now I'm starting to think it makes more sense. Yeah, you're clever, Rukia. So we see this crazy little eye dimension thing. It's not a dimension. He actually just basically converts it, like the area around it, into a little dome filled with eyeballs, and that just kind of augments the ability. Anything that makes eye contact with Tartarforus is afflicted with the fear ability, and so now you literally can't look anywhere. I mean, I guess you could always just close your eyes, but, I mean, how can you fight with your eyes closed, right? Like, that's just impossible. You can't do it. So, As Nodt's pretty confident here. He's just like, just as past fears arise in the dark of night, even stronger in the depths of your brain. So now we see this, and we see, oh god, look at Orihime over there. I froze this at the perfect spot. Byakuya looks like he's turning into some kind of toad man, and Ichigo just... Oh my god, now I'm like, okay, if you look at this scene right here, the way Ichigo's looking at Orihime with his tongue sticking out, and hold on a second. Hold on one moment. I'm gonna crank the opacity back up really quick. Just look at that. I love that. I froze that at the perfect opportunity. It's just okay. All right. So yeah, back to it. But damn, that's cool. That's trippy. Okay, so, yeah, the same basic effect. We're kind of doing a thing similar where with Byakuya, I had the image of Rukia's body, like, decomposing and breaking down into, like, a zombie, and now Rukia sees the same thing with the people she cares about the most. Ichigo, Orihime, and Byakuya. Interesting they didn't include Renji here, considering they're gonna get married at the end of all this. But I'm like, okay, sure. I'm like, Ichigo is still the forefront in her mind. I'll take it. Ichirukia for life! I'm with that. All right. So then, moving forward here, we see the flies and gnats things. Same deal with Byakuya kind of covering Rukia. I shall now burn away your soul with the past fears. Yeah. It would have actually been really cool if they would have shown some scenes of Rukia, like, at the execution stand with the Sokyoku, you know, something like that. Like, she was always afraid of Ichigo dying in front of her. Like, that would have been cool. But, hey, from what we got with the decomposing Ichigo, Orihime, and Byakuya, I'll take it. So, at this point, we have a new arrival, just as everything's are looking kind of grim for Rukia. I feel like Rukia, I don't know, I mean, her fear, she was kind of getting washed over it. She was kind of feeling like a little bit lost there. Like, she was really confident in Sode no Shirayuki's shikai, but then it didn't work, and I think that was the moment where she began to falter. Because Rukia, you know, it's like, I can do this, I think I can do this, and I always felt like she's kind of held herself back a little bit as well. And so maybe she was like having a little bit of a panic moment for more reasons than one, because it literally is the fear. And she didn't really think like, oh no, I can't use my Bankai. Even if I did use my Bankai, it wouldn't be enough. Oh my god, I'm going to die here. You know, and then that's when Byakuya arrives. So Byakuya, you know, I think the impression was he kind of should have died in the first invasion. But if we're going to do this and we're going to keep Byakuya alive, you know, at least give him something to do. And I'm really glad, because I feel like if Byakuya were to have died, Kubo still could have played this fight out very similarly, where instead of Byakuya physically showing up and, like, attacking As Nodt, breaking apart the fear dimension, and then, you know, giving the confidence to Rukia so she can go into Bankai, you could have just had Rukia have a vision of Byakuya or something like that. Like, Rukia has a vision of her brother who, you know, is not really there, but is like, Rukia, you know, I always love you, and you can do this, and you can fight. Avenge me. And then that would give Rukia the confidence, because all she needs to do is go into her Bankai, and she wins. Like, honestly, like, even right now, when she was in the fear dimension and As Nodt was right in front of her, if she would go into Bankai, it's a one-hit kill sheer cold Bankai. It would work. It sets off an ice nuke, all right? It would have worked. But she just didn't. She was afraid. And then so Byakuya was the one that brought her back out of that. But, yeah, if that's how we're going to do this, sure. So, oh yeah, I love this. Even in the interstitch on the episode, what are they called? I always forget what they're called. I call them interstitches on an episode, but like they're other things. Eye catches. That's what they are. Eye catches. Sorry. So we see the eye catch here, which is Haku no Togame, but it's frozen over, like frosted out. I like that. Very nice effect. So Byakuya is back, and they kind of land, and As Nodt's kind of like, I scraped out your entire stomach. Are you eating well? Now, I'm assuming Byakuya had his wounds completely healed, because, you know, I don't think you can really function without a stomach for too long, even if you're a Shinigami. So I'm assuming that was the whole point of the Babs, and so Byakuya is standing there over there, and he's just like, I'm not even going to really entertain this. So, you know, As Nodt takes all the eyeballs from that little dome, and he kind of just attacks Byakuya with the CG power. And then Byakuya just kind of looks over at everything, and he's just like, yeah, don't worry about this, Rukia. I got this, right? You've already surrounded the area with your Senbon Zakura Kageyoshi. And then that's when Byakuya drops his bombshell. I was like, well, wait a second. Ha! You're gonna love this! This is the shikai. What? I don't understand. This whole fight is As Nodt trying to be creepy up to like 100% and thinking that he's got the upper hand. And both times, Rukia and Byakuya are like, no, this is going to blow your world. And he's like, what? It's just like, so, yeah, this is the shikai of Senbon Zakura, which just creates 1,000 falling cherry blossoms, which, by the way, fun little thing with Senbon Zakura I've always found amusing to me. So, the original reason on why Senbon Zakura glows, like in the anime it always glows like pink or purple. I think in the manga it's more of just like a silver kind of like glittery kind of thing. Because that's all they are. They're razor blades. They're tiny little razor blades that Byakuya can control. And then the way Renji explained it is they catch the light when they rise to give them appearance of cherry blossoms. But I find that funny because Byakuya uses his shikai a lot during the night, and even right now they're in this dome. So, like, the fact they're just giving off, like, iridescence, I feel like that's just Ryatsu. That's just Byakuya's Ryatsu. But I find it funny that Kubo did give, like, an actual physical, like actual explanation on why they glow, and it's, like, reflecting light, and that's just kind of not really the case. They kind of throws that out. So, yeah, only 1,000 cherry blossoms, but Byakuya is able to now mold it into various shapes. And it was from taking a step back and realizing the true effect of that was he's able to understand what Senbon Zakura was all about. So it just goes to show, Byakuya was probably thinking like, ooh, the true power of my shikai is I can just make a bunch of blades like razors and then there's attack people with like a cloud of razors, which is the way he always does it. But the thing is, you know, you could do a lot of stuff with that. You're basically given 1,000 building blocks that you can make anything. And so, I don't know if he played Minecraft or something while he was up there in the Soul Palace or something, but he's like, wait a second, I can make shapes out of these things. You know, that's so cool. So he does that. And then, you know, As Nodt's here, and he just kind of begins to have his little freak out moment. So his stitches begin to, like, pop open, and he's like, that's impossible! And so, this is, yeah. So, he's like, I will never end you. I'll never kill you. I'll make sure to keep you alive. I will make you live for eternity, begging for a blissful death. So, I mean, at this point, I feel bad for Rukia. Rukia has to keep fighting against giant blob people. First Arinyero, Arueri, and now As Nodt. What's with Rukia having to fight the giant, disgusting blob people all the time? I feel bad for Rukia. And you know that can't smell good. You know, As Nodt turning into this blobbering... You know the fear... Like, what do you think the fear goo smells like? I don't think it smells like freshly cut flowers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm picturing just raw sewage. Like, you ever have a moment where there's a pipe backed up in your house? It's just raw sewage. That's what it is, okay? Anyway, it's appropriate because Rukia is about to take out the trash, okay? So at this point, that's when Byakuya speaks to Rukia and says, fear is not born in a vacuum. It feeds off the insecurity in one's heart, which right now Rukia kind of does have. She's a little bit insecure, which you can't really blame her considering the way Byakuya raised her for 40 years, kind of treating her in not the best way. So partially that insecurity is because of Byakuya, but Byakuya realizes this, and then he decides, like, okay, this is maybe a little bit too little too late, but I'm going to do this now. All right, it feeds off insecurity of one's heart. And so Byakuya is like, wait a second, the reason Rukia is so insecure might be because of me. Okay, then. So we see As Nodt's monstrous form, where I love, he like literally splits his body open, so he's like a giant right now. And so the body that we've seen up until now is like hanging from his chin is like a husk, and this is like his real body showing up, just like missing teeth and like eyeballs falling out. It's like a fun house at this point. It's like some kind of horror house at this point. It's not scary anymore. I liked it more when the fear was like a primal kind of fear. Just doing this kind of shit is like a Halloween mask you can get at Spirit. You know what I mean? It's like whatever. So this is what I mean. Like, we're ending the episode. We're entering end roll. Like, they're playing the ending credits now. He's like, time to end this, Byakuya Kuchiki. And then he's like, well, sorry, but I'm not going to be the one to end it. Rukia will be. And so this is the time for it. She activates her Bankai, and it sets off the ice nuke. Boom! And we see the letter F be frozen as Rukia activates her Bankai. Haka no Togame. And so it freezes everything in the surrounding area. Literally, okay, so the nature, let me just get the breathtaking view here. There it is, gorgeous. Okay, so when Rukia goes into this form, it is very similar to Soifon's Jakuho Raikoben, which it's a one-and-done kind of Bankai. It's not meant for a long, prolonged fight, and that's also why she doesn't use this at any other point in the arc. I can kind of understand why she doesn't use this at any other point during the arc, okay? It's a one-hit kill Bankai. She goes into Bankai, it sets off an ice nuke. Everything in the surrounding area that is caught in the white haze is frozen to the core, no questions asked. Except if you're probably somebody like Aizen who could avoid it, of course. But, like, other than those really strong opponents, you're frozen to your core, right down to every last cell. And then it just gets cracked away into the wind. Cold beyond cold, okay? And the problem, though, is Rukia, while getting this amazingly beautiful, like, Snow White dress and everything like that, she can't really move. She's just frozen in this ice statue, and then she has to slowly raise her temp back up. And if she doesn't do that, then she could damage her body same way as Sore no Shirayuki's Shikai. So she can't really fight in this form. She can't go Bankai and then go around and have like a pitched sword fight in this form. Rukia is essentially like an ice statue. You ever see those ice sculpting contests that they sculpt ice blocks with like chainsaws or whatever at like festivals? That's basically what Rukia is right now, okay? She is an ice statue in a punch bowl. Okay, that's what she is. That's the best way for me to describe it. So, as the snow begins to fall, Byakuya arrives, and I'm assuming Byakuya, by the way, used Flash Step to get away, so he didn't like get caught in the ice nuke. But he grabs Rukia's hand as she begins to, like, move her hand to, like, you know, begin to move. It, like, begins to crack and break apart. Byakuya grabs it. His hand begins to freeze as well. Anything that comes in contact with Rukia will freeze solid. So that's what I'm assuming. Byakuya probably escaped to not be affected by that. So he tells her, let it melt slowly, Rukia. That was a magnificent Bankai. But it's also a difficult Bankai. You know, train it well, nurture it well. And know that there's nothing that can be saved by a sword swung in exchange for one's life. So basically telling Rukia, like, don't be reckless with this Bankai, and don't use it when you think, don't use it as like, and this is also probably because Byakuya is, of course, Rukia's older brother, so he cares about her, but it's a thing of, like, don't ever use Haka no Tagame, like, okay, the enemy's coming at me, I better use this Bankai. I'm going to die, but at least it takes the enemy out with me. That's what I'll do. he doesn't want Rukia to use it like that, like a life for a life kind of thing. So only use it with confidence and nurture it to the point where you can use it effectively, okay? That's the idea. So Byakuya is like, let's go, Rukia. Let's go, continue the fight elsewhere. And we do see a scene here of the ice beginning to melt off of Rukia's hair, which I really like there. I really like to see, like, Rukia with her black hair, but still wearing the outfit. Like, still wearing her Bankai dress, but having the black hair. I think that would contrast really well. Looks really great on her. So now we end the episode with a scene with Isane and Yachiru. So they're still healing Rose and Kensei, and Yachiru's just going over to grab some bedding and stuff like that. So this is actually a really interesting scene. So at this point, we have a Sternritter arriving, and his name is Sternritter V, the Vanishing Point Gwenail Lee. As soon as he shows up, though, he disappears, and Yachiru tries to punch him, and then she gets punched. And then he just begins to laugh in the background like, za, 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 za. I will disappear from your sight and your mind. So, his ability, he himself, by the way, is not actually a real Sternritter. He is a creation by Gremmy. But his ability does exist because Gremmy imagined it. So he has like 3 different phases of being a vanishing point. So the phase 1 is just he turns invisible. So his physical body's still there. You can still touch him and bump into him. He's just invisible. Phase 2 is that he becomes intangible. So he can like phase through solid matter and things like that. And then phase 3 is all of the above. Plus he vanishes from somebody's own memory. So people don't even remember who he was, right? Now, in the manga, when this scene plays out, it's from Gwenail Lee's perspective. He's the one that's actually thinking, like, this is my first power, this is my second power, I'm going to use my third power, right? Okay, so he uses all these different abilities. Here, it's actually not from his perspective, it's from Yachiru and Asane's point of view, which is way more clever, because if you haven't read the manga, you'd be watching this right now like, what the hell is this guy's ability? What's he doing, Is he invisible? Is he intangible? What, can he mess with your memory? Like, what can this guy do? And that's the reaction that Yachiru and Isane are having here. So the fact that they switched the POV of that, I really like. That's clever. And it's kind of ominous setup for the next one. So that's sort of the preamble, and that's not even all of it, because Yachiru's going to have her own little fight with Gwenail Lee in a second. She's going to use her shikai, Sampo Kenju, and I'm actually really looking forward to see if they're going to do anything with Sampo Kenju, considering what we're going to find out about Yachiru later. But yeah, next episode, Bleach number 20, I am the edge. I am the hype. So, yeah, Vegeta versus Kenpachi, who would win? But no, this is going to be the entire fight between Kenpachi and Gremmy. So like I said, they had to include a lot here, shove Rukia's Bankai into the ending credits, and then use this as the preamble for the prologue for Gremmy versus Kenpachi. Because, yeah, Gremmy versus Kenpachi is like, I think it ends at chapter 579, and we're on like chapter 571 right now. Like we're gonna be booking through the next episode, I guarantee. We're gonna be moving quite a bit. It's gonna be like the Gwenail Lee stuff is probably gonna take like less than like 2 minutes at the beginning, and Sampo Kenju, whatever, what are you? Oh, I am Gremmy. Oh no, and he kills Gwenail Lee, and then Gremmy shows up, and then Kenpachi shows up, and then we gotta get moving, all right? Well, anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This would have been BANKAST episode 19, the White Haze. A lot of great stuff coming up here next. We're gonna get Byakuya, we're gonna get Kenpachi's fight, then we're gonna get Ichigo showing up on the scene, and I don't know how many more episodes are in Core 2. I don't know if that was revealed or not. There was 14 in Core 1. I don't know if there's going to be 14 episodes in Core 2. But I think the best way for us to end this would be right before we get to the Soul Palace. Actually, no, wait. The episodes were revealed. I think we are going to get, like, right before the Soul Palace is right where that core is going to end. Because I remember seeing March Out the Zombies parts 1 and 2. I forgot about the March Out the Zombies section. That happens right before they go to the Soul Palace. So, yeah, that's going to take up, I think, 2 episodes for that. All right. Well, anyway, let me know about all that stuff down below. And, yeah, have a great one, everybody. Tekking, signing out.